There have been some changes to Google Forms quizzes over the summer, and we've encouraged you to start using quizzes and forms with your students. So I thought it would be good to show you some of the changes that have been made. First of all, if you're giving a quiz that has lots of questions or even just a few, and you know that most or all of them are going to have the same point value, it can save you some time to go up to the three dots and then click Preferences and set the default quiz point value as whatever it is most of the questions are going to be. If there are a few that you have to go back in and change, that's a lot easier than having to set all of them because the default value starts out as 0. And so if you've got a 25 question quiz, you've got to go in and change all of those unless you change the default value. You can also set it to collect email addresses by default or make all questions required by default. And that's also a nice option. Again, if you have just a few that aren't required, you can always go back in and change those few instead of having to click on all of your questions. Now, if we look at the types of questions we've got, Google Forms hasn't always done a great job in their quizzes of handling short answer or fill in the blank where the student has the option of what they're going to type in. Usually there's only one correct answer, and that's bound by a correct spelling or capitalization. And what they've allowed you to do now is to go into the answer key. You can add in lots of answers that are acceptable as correct. So for a color that starts with the letter R, you've got a few different options. It might seem a little bit annoying that you've got to maybe come up with some of the potential screw ups or mistakes that a kid might make in their spelling, but it only takes a few seconds to type in those answers. You can also check to mark all other answers incorrect. And you can still go in to the spreadsheet if a kid comes up with another option that you hadn't thought of. You can still go in and change that grade fairly easily, but this is better than just having the one option be correct. Now you can put in lots of possible options. Also, for questions where multiple answers might be correct, if we look at the answer key for this question, might not be a great question, science teachers, please cut me some slack on this one. But you've got multiple options and you want the kids to choose all the correct answers. So you set which ones are correct or not. And then again, you might make this worth 3 points. They have to get all three correct to get the 3 points. If they only answer neutron and electron, they will get 0 points. So you might set this that they've got to get all three to get the 1 point. That's really up to you. If you do want them to be able to select multiple items, you have to remember to make that a check boxes question. It can't be multiple choice or drop down. Check boxes means they can check as many as apply. And if you're going to ask questions like those, it's always good to let them know that there's more than one correct answer. It may also be a good idea when you're giving a quiz or a test to ask for some identifying information. Some teachers, when they set theirs up, think that, oh, I can just collect email addresses, and they forget that the email address comes in as their student ID number at valleyview.org, and that really doesn't help identify anybody. So it is a good idea to have a question that asks for identifying information like a last name and a first name. If you just put name, you're going to get lots of different options as far as what they put in for their name. So if you can be very specific, it's going to help you look at your data on the back end of this. You might also want to number the questions, because later on when you're asking a student, what question did you get wrong? There's no numbers, they have to read the whole question to you and you have to go back in and look at that. So putting in numbers is also a really good idea for your quizzes and tests. It's also a good idea to go in and look at the test or quiz and take it yourself once before you give it to the class. Might even be a good idea to have a colleague take it, just so they can point out something you might not have seen. You're looking at the quiz. You can see that it asks for a last name, a first name. You can see that these are all required questions, which is good. So they filled out the test. You click submit. Kids can see their score right away. You made a little mistake here, and you decided to grade their last and first name. So you'd want to go in to this question and open the answer key and set it to 0 points. And that will fix that issue. But it's a good reason that you need to go in and view your test or quiz before the kids see it, because you might have made a mistake that you just kind of skip over because you know what you meant to put there. One of the things that teachers often ask once they've given a quiz is, where do I find the answers? And the answers are right here in the responses tab. If you click on that, there are a few different ways to look at the answers. You can see a summary of all the test data. You can also look at the individual questions. You notice here that it says it starts you by looking at question number 3 out of 4 because you didn't score the first 2. So you can see that for question number 1, here are the answers that were given. This one was wrong because you didn't put in an option that had no space between royal and blue. You can go into the spreadsheet and change that for the student if you would like. This one put in too many options, so it was marked wrong. And if you click here, you can see by student what they put. And then you can look at each individual student's answers. It gives you a look by the number of students. This is student 1 of 6, and you can go through and it shows you their entire form. And then move on to the next one. It shows you how many points they got. You can also look at the answers in the spreadsheet. And you only want to create the spreadsheet after you're sure that your form looks exactly the way you want it, so that the spreadsheet also is going to look exactly the way you want it to. So you click create. And now if we look at the spreadsheet, you can see all of the scores. You can see, like we mentioned with this student, if you want to accept that answer, you can go in and change that to a 1. So they got 1 correct. You could also change this one to a 1 out of 2 as well. Those are your options. You can look at the spreadsheet to see the answers, or you can see the answers on the responses tab of the form. Hopefully this lets you see some of the features that are new to Google Forms and quizzes, and hopefully you'll use these more in your classroom.